Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Ria. I'm the CFO at Westpac Construction out in Phoenix, Arizona. We're a commercial general contractor. We're a member of GCI. Do 300 to 400 million worth of revenue a year just in the state of Arizona. Got about 100 people with our company and been members of the captive now for 10 plus years.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Warda. I'm with the Raymond and Kelly Company out of Buffalo, New York, and we specialize in masonry restoration. The company's been in business since 1934. I've been with the company for 45 years, and last year I went into retirement, and I am now in a part-time position, which means I don't put in a whole heck of a lot of hours. But we've been NCI and a captive member since 2004. So we have a little bit of seniority, seen a lot of growth, seen a lot of change and a lot of success. And personally, I'm glad to be here in a group of brokers, insurance brokers, if you would ever believe that. Well, now you gotta be careful because there are some people here in the room that are associated with lawyers, but last week I had a deposition for about 6.5 hours with lawyers, just question you. And a month ago, I was on a jury in Buffalo for 4 days, listening to lawyers. So I am glad to be with brokers. You do a lot for the captive program, you do a lot for NCI, and you're really a major factor with the success that we have. So thank everyone who contributes.
I'm Mitch Raven. I'm with A1 Roofing. We're out of Elk Grove, Illinois, which is actually 9 minutes from here. That's why they brought me in, so they didn't have to pay to fly me here. No, I didn't get anything. Nothing yet. So our company's been in business since 1910. My grandfather started it, so we're 115 years. We're in Roofers Insurance Limited. We're a founding company from 2006. And there's actually a story before that I think I'm the only one in the room that knows, but I'm not going to tell it right now. Well, real quick. Well, it's fun because everybody who's involved in this with captive resources and brokers is no longer around. I'm the only one. So we started to form a roofers captive in 2000 before 9/11. And it was going to be a Chicago-only captive. And it was really, we had like 3 meetings, I think, and 9/11 hit, and all the reinsurance went away, and the whole thing just crashed and burned. And then it resurrected in 2005 as a national organization. And from my company, it saved us, because in Illinois, to get insurance for roofing back then was impossible. It was CNA and Zurich, and then CNA pulled out of Illinois, leaving us with Zurich. And that year, Zurich raised our premiums to $1.5 million with a $250,000 deductible, which we couldn't afford. It was going to put us out of business, and the captive kicked in right when that was going down and pretty much saved the company. And from a business point of view, the captive has been a lifesaver. It's a whole different way of looking at insurance for us, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those questions later, but it's been great for our company. And part of being the captive, Roofers Insurance, I think, has 192 members right now, and I have friends to network with all over the country. The people I've met at I go to all the board meetings and all the risk control meetings. So I've asked Kensington, and I've talked to John Roosevelt to check, but I'm pretty certain I've been to more meetings than anybody else in the captive. And part of the reason is the people I get to network with. The stuff that I learned right back. I found when I had one person with my company go to one and came back, oh, it was a waste of time, I didn't learn a thing, shouldn't have gone. And then 3 months later, during a company meeting, he goes, oh, they talked about that at the captive. So I felt that was the last time I'm sending anybody else, because I bring whatever I can back to the company. And if I come back with one idea from somebody I'm sitting at a table talking to, it's worthwhile. So on that note, let's continue.
Great, thank you. So maybe David, you'll take this one. Just tell us a little bit about your experiences since you joined GCI, your expectations. Did it meet your expectations? Maybe exceed them? Were there surprises? Kind of take us through that journey.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to have to fight these guys for the microphone, too. I did not realize we were going that deep on the opening question. So my journey is a little bit different. The company had joined the captive prior to me joining the company. I joined Westpac about 5 years ago. Was familiar with captives. Actually had some experience with NCI during that time. But as I came through, the relationship with the broker and us is immensely strong, just because he's the one that sold it to us. He came to us with this idea. He said, we think this is something that's really going to benefit Westpac, make you a little bit more competitive. The founder at the time said, okay, sure, we'll do it. He heard in the back of his head, oh, I get to go to the board meetings here and there and the other thing. As he started to progress along, he got so territorial, he told the broker, don't you dare sell this to one of my competitors. This is a competitive advantage for Westpac. We want to be in this. We want the talent and the treasure of having this before anybody else. So when I came along and inherited that, I said, okay, that's great, John. We bought him out 2 years ago, so now I can talk about him as the wacky founder. So when the wacky founder went out, I had 2 friends join from the Valley that are also in construction, CFOs that are there, because what we really wanted at the end of the day was good people in it. And I think that's what we continue to maintain inside of ours. And seeing them in the Valley, or seeing them out at one of those events that we have, and they're good events, don't get me wrong, but we spend time collaborating on what's happening. We see what's happening in our industry, and our broker feels that much better about seeing others that are going through the same things as well, that he can now correlate to what we're doing. So as we've gone through, I've taken a little bit more active role in the captive itself. I come back, I do a 1 day with all of our project managers and our team from what we learned. Our risk control person, who's also our general superintendent, came back out of the last meeting in Denver and realized that there was a level higher than what we had for safety, and he was pissed that we didn't have it. So he called Dave Nettie, and I don't know if Dave's here today or not. He called Dave Nettie, he's like, you need to come back out to Phoenix. I need to be reassessed because I am in the top 20 of this captive, and I want to see my name on that plaque next time. So sure enough, Dave came out, rode around in a truck with him, did the whole thing. But it's just that competitive nature that we've gotten here. Like, we want to be good. This is our money. This is our investment, and safety is important. But the people that are surrounded by us are also important. So we like to make sure that we have good people inside of it during the process, and our cowboy nature keeps us going after it and trying to make it better each time.
Great, thank you. Don, did you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, David, you had a couple good points, and one is the relationship with the broker and the safety aspect of it. When the conference started today, Courtney, you started out right out of the gate with company profile. And some of the brokers mentioned various topics, but when you looked at your pie chart, it was safety. It's based on safety. The risk control meetings I've attended, I can't tell you how many risk control meetings. You take that one takeaway. We always say, what's that one takeaway you're going to take back to the office? Because that one takeaway that you or whoever you send there and brings back, and there's some great presenters. I mean, some of these presenters, they just get you, I don't know if it's emotionally, but they drive the point home, and you take that back and you repeat it so many times. And so the safety aspect that I think is a huge part of it, and it has to start with upper management. And you recommended Courtney, about saying, attending the safety meetings is recommended. At NCI, we're trying to get attendance for safety workshops up to 80%. And that's more than just a recommendation. We don't want to make it a mandate. And we're trying to do things and make incentives to people attend. But once you start attending, it's that one thing that you learn at a safety workshop that you bring back, and you can save one claim, one injury, or one death. Who no one ever wants to go through that. I know a gentleman who owned a company, and he had a death, and it affects him every day of his life. And that's a call you never want to have to make. So safety is a huge part. Collaborating with your broker. I mean, when we were in traditional insurance, I saw the broker once a year, 3 days before renewal. Here's your number. I know it's high. We'll work on it. And he brings it down, and you have to be happy. You have no other choice. with the captive program, you build a relationship with your broker. You can call them. We had a board meeting in Quebec, and I was taking on a group of people for dinner pre-meetings, and I called my broker and says, I know you're having a group of people go out. Which restaurant are you going to? You know, and he calls me. I left him a voicemail. He called me back. He goes, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm doing the same thing you're doing. And we happen to have chose the same restaurants, which was good. But that's a relationship. That's not a business call. You don't call somebody and say, where are you going for a restaurant? You're building a relationship. He's working for me. I'm working for him. And together it's a winning team.
Great. Mitch?
I don't look at the captive as being an insurance money saver. I don't really know what my competitors pay. I don't know what the general market is. I know for years prior to the captive, we'd renew on June 1st and May 31st, they put it on my desk and said, here's your only quote and this is what you're gonna do starting tomorrow. What the captive has done for us is given us consistency. We've seen through the years that the increases or decreases have been very minor. We're not getting hit with 15, 18% increases. If we have a good year, we may go down 3 or 4%, we may go up 5%, but it's stayed very, very stable. And so when it comes to the renewal time of it, I don't have to be sitting there calling my broker saying, have you got all the quotes, do you have anything? I've got to get COIs out tomorrow because I don't know, am I going to have insurance? It's lowered the insurance stress, and that was critical to us in my company. Take a step back. Since I'm only a blue-collar roofer, they didn't tell me about a jacket. When I saw these guys, you know, they wanted me to look like I normally look like every day, so I want to apologize for that, or actually, I'm the comfortable one, I don't know which it is. But, you know, as far as the captive and safety, I mean, they're right, there's nothing more important than the risk control and the safety. And at one of our meetings years ago, CNA came out and talked about falls from roofs. In the 45 years I've been with the company, and by the way, I'm not gonna retire, am I gonna spend my time with attorneys and depositions? All I do is talk about retirement, not if I gotta do what you're doing. And CNA talked about the #1 fall issue with roofing and other trades is skylights. The skylights generally aren't protected. I know we've had, over the years, 2 or 3 very unpleasant meetings with OSHA dealing with skylights. So one day I was driving down Lake Cook Road north of here and near Buffalo Grove going over a bridge, and I saw a warehouse with all these skylights, and a guy had built some covers for him. And I said, that's really pretty cool. And I make this quick U-turn. My wife says, what are you doing? I said, I need another look. Well, 6 years later, I came out with a patented skylight protection system, which is by far the best thing on the market. Not because I designed it, but because I had to find a solution, because anytime anybody gets hurt, it's all on me. I handle all the claims, I handle everything. We've had 1 fall in the 45 years. And now I've been marketing this device to the captive, but it was because I got tweaked by CNA at one of the risk control meetings that said, I knew I had a problem, you know, became a list of all my other problems, and because of that, I spent the time and it took us almost 2 years to develop it before it went to market. And it was because of the risk control meeting that really got me focused on it.
Great, thank you. So I think I throw it out to you folks. What do you want to hear about? Anybody have any questions? This is your time. What do you want them to talk to you about?
Hey, I'll start it, Gail. I'll
Okay.
start it.
All right. All right.
Oh, you got one back there? Okay.
Hey, you guys talked about the broker relationship. Since we're all brokers in this room, anything that you can kind of give us some insight on the things that have been the most helpful from an engagement standpoint, just so it gives us a better idea of what we need to be doing.
All right, so our original broker got bought out, disappeared, and we went to a new broker about 5-6 years ago. And I learned a lot by the change. the broker I'm working with now, he's a great guy, very personable, we get along great, but I found a lack of service. And it really didn't hit me for a while, because the company I've been working with that started with the captive with me had been with us for 20 years prior to the captive. So the services they gave me were just normal and everything I thought about. So I switched to this new broker. I talked to CNA about it. They said, you made a great decision. And I still feel I do, but I had an issue where the broker was trying to do everything. He was trying to get involved in the losses, the claim reviews he sits in, but when I had issues with our TPA, he was trying to get involved in that. He really didn't have the background. So about a year ago, things got a little bit nasty, and what happened is they brought more people on. And I'm telling you the story because as a broker, what I have now is I have one lady who helps me on comp cases, I have another lady who helps me on liability cases, and he now strictly deals with the renewals and the claims, but I have people working with the TPA and me to work on the claims, to minimize them, to get them settled. Because for a long time I felt I was by myself. And I would call the agent up, and he's out selling. He's in another town trying to get more business, and that's fine, that's his job. And like I said, I really like him, we get along great. But it wasn't enough service for what I was paying and what I was used to. And I kind of, again, like the Skylight thing, it was on my list of things, but kind of got by me until something went bad. So from a broker point of view, it's service. You have to have enough people to be able to service the account. And the biggest issue we all deal with is we get a claim, how do we minimize it? Because dealing with a captive is much different than dealing with the insurance company. Bottom line is that money is mine. You know, and Roofers Insurance Limited, the $300,000 limit for the captive, the first $100,000 I pay out of my pocket, and then it all gets confusing after that. You know, they tell you first $100,000, next thing you know, they take a $200,000 at the end of the year, and you can't quite figure it out. So you just kind of go along with it. But when I've sat with talking to the TPAs, they said, "Oh, let's throw $15,000 at this and try to get it settled." And my response is always no. I said, it's one thing if I had a $5,000 deductible and it's coming out of CNA's pocket. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. Who cares? They'll pay that. They won't blink. You take $15,000 out of my pocket, and I'm blinking. And you really have to look at the money much differently, because I take it every dollar personally, because it's my loss fund, it's my A fund, it's my P fund. I want a dividend 5 years from now when that year is closing or partial closing. So that all comes into play, but it doesn't come into play with the TPAs, especially when they bring a risk, I'm drawing a blank on the term, but somebody work on the claims from a non-captive area, because they have no clue about how the captive money works. And when I'm on the phone and I said, look, we're not gonna do this, it's too much money, let's offer them less and try to fight it down. Before the captive, I'd say fine, I'll pay the $10,000 deductible, do whatever you want, settle it, I don't care. It'll affect me on the premiums, we'll deal with that later. So as a broker, you really have to understand that it's our money, it's our personal money that's sitting out there. And you really have to work with us to fight to keep that claim down.
I would also add to that our teams have claims folks at CRI on the individual captive teams, and they also will help work with the TPAs and with the owners of the insurance company, the members, to all collectively try to come to a resolution. So you do have a pretty big breadth of a team with the CRI folks as well. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure when your broker first came to you and pitched the idea, there was maybe some balking at how intimidating it sounded. Was there the involvement from CRA that was helpful, or anything else they said that really helped you get thinking about it, more interested?
I'll start with that. So we joined in 2004. In 2004, captive insurance is not very popular. We were introduced to it by our accounting firm, who was also the same accounting firm for other, at the time, NCI members in the captive program, when the captive program was just starting up. So as far as, where do you get leads? It might be, your local accounting firms that deal with construction companies. And when you meet with them annually or biannually, they talk to them because they're looking at other companies. They know if they're financially strong, they know if they're good, safe contractors, and they may be a good source. And that's how we were introduced to a captive. And at the time, the theory was, you know, boy, you're really self-insuring yourself completely. You may have to write $1 million checks, but Captive Resource sent people in, and they also had existing members join in that first meeting at the broker, because it was a different broker than our traditional broker. So when we were introduced, the concept was totally different. You know, write a check for 100, I can handle that. Write a check for another 24.9 and send it off to Grand Cayman, you know, and you know, copy Vinny to make sure, you know, that it's in the right account, you know. So the concept of it is like, is this for real? And then you do have the collateral, you know, and you can do an LOC if you want, or you can do cash collaterals. So, you know, the concept of it was different in 2002, maybe when I first heard about it, because it took us about 1.5 years to take the leap. And the reason we took the leap is because I could not get a writer for a project we were bidding. And there were other contractors working on that. It was a CM job, so there was individual subcontractors. And I'm talking to the one sub who was a gypsum guy, and I says, how are you getting insurance? He goes, we belong to a captive. And I says, I gotta get onto this program. And that's when I talked to my business partner, and I says, we gotta make the leap. So we got kind of like pushed in by not by choice. We had to work in the great state of New York. And so the relationship with the broker started totally from scratch, but the commonality was existing members, recommendations by our accounting firm, which we highly regarded, and the presentation by Captive Resources. And that all came together with a confidence level because the variables were awkward, you know, sending offshore money and so forth. So it was a combination of all three factors: getting to know the broker, contractors and members that were already part of a captive program, and CRI's presentation was phenomenal.
Thank you. David, talk to us about the renewal process. How has it changed since you joined the captive, and how has your relationship with your broker changed during the renewal process since you joined the captive, if at all?
For sure, and I'm gonna tack on one thing as well, which when sitting in my seat, I would tell you I'm very good at a lot of things. I was not good at insurance, I was not good at risk management, and then I had this guy on the other side of the table who was my broker, who's by far the smartest person I know about that, and I don't mean to offend anybody in the room about that, but I look to you, and other people would look to you as the expert. You know, you become our de facto risk management team. You become our guiding light when things are going bad. At least for me, you guys are much smarter than me. But for me, I need that, and I would tell you right now, if I called that man and he was in the hospital, he would answer on the second ring, because that level of trust and relationship between us is stronger than anything, and his recommendation is why we went through with the captive 25 years ago, and he took this guy that came in 20 years into the relationship and built that same level of trust in 10 minutes. So that's a credit to y'all, and I'll be honest, you don't make enough. So don't worry about putting that flat fee on there. We'll pay it. For smart people, we'll pay it, 100%. And Gail, your question on the renewal, it does simplify the renewal, I'll be honest with you. When we go to the meetings or when we get the communications from Captive Resources on what the program's gonna look like in the next year, I may know as much of the financial costs as the broker does when it's coming to me. And so when we sit down and go through, we have a really educated conversation about what that looks like. There's a reason that it's a 98% renewal and retention, piece, because when you look at it and you realize I've got the predictability now when I'm making my budgets, my forecast for the next 3 to 5 years, if I'm good at managing my costs, and I think we are at our firm, that I know what my pricing is gonna look like. I know what my losses could be. I can model that out, and having that comfort in that renewal that's coming in, it takes that off of my anxiety list when I'm looking at what the company's gonna do for the next year, 3, 10 years. You know, we went through an ESOP transaction recently, and anybody that's been through one or has a client that's been through one, I'll tell you, there's a lot to it, but the same mentality that we have in the captive carries over now into our company, which is, this is our money, we all need to work together for it. When we're sitting in the captive with 250 other contractors, it's our money, we need to work through it, make sure that we're doing the right thing for everybody involved. And I'll tell you, it's something you put that hat on when you go into the board meeting and says, okay, I'm a GCI board member today, I'm not Westpac Construction, I need to make decisions for that in the renewal process. Last year we went from a 1-2 in our commercial general liability to 2-4. It was a big darn deal because in Arizona, you don't need 2-4, you need 1-2. But the guys in New York need 2-4. And now you're making a decision for the whole group that comes through, and the brokers are aware, well, David, you might need this someday. It doesn't matter if we do or don't, we work through the process together to understand what those costs would look like. And you think, oh, if we went from 1-2 to a 2-4, it's easy math for a dummy like me. That doubles your premium. Didn't even come close. We actually went down a little bit, and that's probably just a case specific, right, Gail? But
No.
you have those conversations, and I'll tell you, this is probably the wrong thing to say. Your renewals get easier. I'll tell you right now, I'm never leaving. So the renewal is very easy. I know it's coming in. I know what the numbers look like, and if I'm engaged enough, I know that we've done everything we can.
Great.
Adding on to the renewal, Gail, predictability is everything you need, because you're bidding projects today for jobs that are gonna run for 1 to 2 years. So you're putting your margins on your bids. And, you know, NCI has been so fortunate, our renewals for the last 6 years, I think it has been flat. You know, when I talk to contractors that are still in the traditional market that, you know, yeah, our renewal's been flat for 6 years, they grab their chest. It's like, are you serious? It's like, yes, it's been flat. So you can predict what your bid numbers are, what your margins are gonna be. And if there is gonna be an increase, I mean, you look at cost of living, you know there's gonna be some increases coming sooner or later. You get an idea in advance. You don't get hit 3 days in advance.
I want to talk a minute about understanding captives, because the answer to that is not possible. So, we found in talking that you have to go to 4, 5, 6 board meetings through the orientations, before you start getting a little bit of an understanding of it. When I joined the captive, I had really no clue what I was joining. I needed it, and it turned out to be great. But when Roofers Insurance Limited started in 2006, there were 18 of us, 2 from Chicago. And at that point, they decided not to take anybody else from Chicago. Cook County was too litigious, they held off. And it was, I don't know, 7, 8 years before they opened it up again. And just about everybody from Chicago, they brought in 7 other contractors, talked to me. Now, this may sound bad, I don't mean it to. Like I said, I've been doing this for 45 years. I've been on the Chicago Roofing Contractors Board of Directors for 20 years now. This is my final year. I'm past president. I have to roll off. From the 1950s, I'm the 3rd longest tenured member of the association. So everybody knows me. And a number of the people called me up and said, you know, we're looking to join the captive. Can you explain it to me? And my answer in most cases was no, but I'll give you some of the background. We talked about the best board meetings are in the fall, because you see that dividend when you get the board list. And you look at it and you say, oh good, I'm getting this money back, or it's, oh crap, I'm not getting anything, and look what this other guy's getting. But I was told by the person who ran Roofers before John, he's now retired and I play golf with him every Saturday, that a number of people said to him, we're gonna join because Mitch is there, and if Mitch is there, then it must be good, it must serve a purpose. Now, like I said, this wasn't gonna sound good when I said it, but because if they couldn't understand it, they figured since I was still there and with it, that it must serve a purpose, it must be good. And for you as a broker to sell it, you have a tough time sitting across the table from a contractor or somebody trying to sell it. You need to bring people in from the area. And I know there was a lot of conversations about, oh, I don't want my competitor in there because, you know, I have a competitive advantage. I don't see any competitive advantage of being in the captive. For me, it's just a company issue. It's better for our company, it's easier, less stressful, great trips, good people. But it takes that recommendation from other members for somebody to really want to join and understand it.
Great, thank you. I have some more questions, but what questions do you folks have? Does anybody? Go ahead.
Can you get any of these guys to come to any of the seminars that you talk about?
You'll have to ask them individually.
You know, one thing we do at NCI is when a broker has a prospective, client that's looking like he fits the bill for everything we have, and he goes through the whole vetting process, and it's looking good, and NCI wants him, and he's just teetering like that. I mean, Captive Resource will set up phone calls with one or two or three, they'll offer different names, whatever region they're in the country, and say, give this person a call. And I know Megan has done it with me, Vince has done it with me, and with other members from NCI, and we have a tremendous success rate when a contractor is talking to a contractor. Because it's hey, I'm a contractor, I know what you're going through, you know what I go through every day, rather than a broker trying to throw numbers and say, well, this is what it might happen. So, word of mouth with members, and if it's not in person, it can be a masonry contractor from California that I might talk to. We're in the same business, and they can relate to that, and that gives them the confidence that, hey, you've been in it a long time and you still love it. Something's right about it. So that type of communication works very, very well.
Yeah, echo that as well, and peer-to-peer is great. I think the other thing that I try and tell people about the captive is, it's got this depth now. It's really built out to this point where you have, truly it's called Captive Resources for a reason, because you have the claims folks, you have the people out there that are gonna come in and help you make your business a little bit better. And I think we've leveraged that not only through their talent, but also through the talent of the other members that are out there. It is something pretty collaborative and it's fraternal in a way, that we get together and can discuss all the things that are impacting us. So from a sales perspective, yeah, it's pretty powerful, and I'll tell you one of them. I didn't get a commission off of him, but he joined anyway, and a guy across town, and they're a competitor, but they build a good product and they run a really good program. They're the kind of people you'd want in the captive.
So talk to me about if you've caused risk sharing or if you've been assessed. Does that apply to anybody? No, it doesn't apply to you. Anybody else?
Now.
Okay.
He's lagging.
So tell us about how that made you feel, or your understanding of those components. If there's folks out there that are, when it gets to the risk sharing or the potential max and the assessment, they get a little concerned. From your perspective, tell us about that.
Well, when I see that in the board book, I know I've had better days. The assessments are an issue, but the way we do it in our company is we figure out our insurance rate based on 2 A's and a B, that way we're covered. If we just base our insurance, and I don't know how deep everybody knows between A funds and B funds and all that kind of stuff here, but if we bid our insurance based on A fund, 1A and 1B, and we get assessed, we're taking a hit. So we end up booking more insurance costs in our books than we actually encounter. If we don't get the assessment, then we have a nice insurance adjustment at the end of the year back into the profits. The assessments are just part of the game. As much as it's happened twice, and actually this year, I was supposed to be assessed $52,000. And when I saw that, I immediately got on the phone, called a whole bunch of people. And what actually had happened is the TPA didn't close a claim in time. They closed it after the year end instead of before. And once we backed that out, my assessment went away and I was happy again. I haven't talked at all about Captive Resources and how they've worked with us, But when we started with Captive Resources, I think they had about 90 employees, and I don't know, what do they have, 300 or 400 now? And I've gone to some golf outings with them and a lot of other things, and I have to tell you, I don't know how much you all work with Captive Resources, this is a class company. Everybody that I have worked with has been absolutely terrific. They give you all the support you need. I was our claims person. I was calling in this afternoon about an issue with a claim. John, I'm the new kid on the block here. Been here 4 years now, 3 years. It's just been great. It's a great group of people to deal with. So one other thing I want to mention, when you're trying to sell in a region, there's a lot of pushback from contractors wanting to be with their competitors. And now that there's, I think, 9 of us from Chicago in the captive, and Chicago's kind of a weird area. And I had some people come up to me from Michigan and Pennsylvania, because they all knew who I was. They said, "We don't understand you guys." I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You Chicago guys, you sit by the pool and you talk. You go to the bar and you talk. You guys have 2 tables full of people and you all sit there and you're all competitors." These other guys said, "I'll never sit next to my competitor. I won't talk to him. I don't want to share any secrets." Well, us Chicago guys, we don't share secrets. We just sit there and we BS and we talk about different things. But we're friends. And if a competitor in the captive, Ridgeworth Roofing, takes a job for me, that's fine. I get the next one down the line, and we shrug it off and we stay friends. So you have to be a little bit careful about the personalities. And when people say, "Well, I don't want to be with my competitor," well, you got 150, 200, 300 members. You're not going to be with your competitors. Plenty of people to hang with, plenty of people to be friends with. If that's your reason for not wanting to join the captive, you need to talk around it, because there's people in the captive now that I don't even know. Our first board meeting was 30 people in the Caymans. It was the first week of hurricane season. It was $250 a night at the Ritz. It was really cool. Never stayed at a hotel where they filled my ice bucket 3 times a day. And at the meeting we just had in Switzerland, we had 450 people go to Switzerland, which was an unbelievable amount. We had 400 and something in the Caymans at the meeting before that. These are huge numbers. And the problem I have in the captive, I've been there 19 years now, the majority of my close friends have retired or sold. We always had, starting back in '06, the best table. We would go to the 2 banquet dinners, we had a lot of fun, we'd end up with shots. I was in charge of it. There were many times on the islands I had to slip a 20 or more to the bartender because they weren't allowed to get shots in order to get them. But it's changing now. It's younger. You know, I'm on the older end of the group, and you know, my wife said, "What are we going to do? We lost our table." And I said, "Well, our table were people from Buffalo, people from Pittsburgh, people from Pennsylvania, and some captive resource people." I said, "Now we're moving to the Chicago table." I said, "You know them all. We're going to sit with them," because they always said to me, "Why don't you sit with us?" I said, "I've known these people since '06. They become good friends. You know, we meet up, we travel together, and there were an awful lot of young 30s, early 40 people there, a lot of kids. It made it to be fun, but it's a little different feeling for myself because of the change. But I still have a couple more years of board meetings, and maybe more if I have to deal with lawyers.
So if you had one piece of advice for these folks presenting this product and trying to grab their client or prospect's attention, what grabbed your attention? What would be that piece of advice for them?
To me, it'd be the steady insurance. Not having to sweat out every renewal. Knowing that 6 weeks or so before the end of the year, you're gonna have your quotes, you're gonna know where you're at. You know, we start adjusting our bids 4 or 5 months before the end of the year, guessing at where we're gonna be. And with the old insurance, I wouldn't know to the day before if we guessed right or not. Now we know 6, 7 weeks in advance, we can go ahead and tweak our numbers, we can adjust it, and we're not worried about the quote. We're not leaving the captive, we're not going anywhere. You know, CNA, whatever, can go ahead and raise us a few percent here or there. we're not changing. It's a great system, and personally, I'm gonna repeat what I said before, I love to reduce stress. I know I've got insurance, I know where I'm gonna be.
Great, other questions for the group? Yes?
The insurance program itself, the captive program, only involves a couple lines of coverage. So when you're dealing with the other lines of coverage, for instance, your property premiums, but you're general contractors, so you probably don't have a lot of property. But in those lines of coverage, is it the same agent that helps you with those other lines of coverage? Is there a different renewal presentation that is involved there? And how is your experience with the rest of your program?
I'll start here. It is the same broker for us, so we use the same agent to do that, to build our towers. We need, we entered auto in this last year, so auto, workers' comp, general liability, all taken care of in the cap. But the other pieces that we're putting on there, we've tied it to that same renewal date, which is us, it's the September date. So it is that same relationship. I feel like that's an important one to have because we're bringing everything together. It's a whole package. I like the person across from me to really be able to answer all those questions and say, oh no, Larry takes care of that for you at XYZ firm as opposed to me. So no, I'm a strong proponent of bringing it all together. I think that's the best answer, at least it is for us.
Yeah, it's the same with us. We package the whole thing. We more or less know where the captive package is gonna be. And then our broker actually, as soon as he starts getting prices in, he'll let us know in advance that he's seeing the spike in this, but he's gonna try and offset it. So it's a team that we're working together. So we do package everything together with the same broker.
And it's the same with us, as one broker, it's convenient, it works out, it's nice, and we know that the ones we're gonna get slammed on is gonna be the umbrella. For some reason, they want that 15-20% every year. Cyber has been going a little bit crazy lately, but having it all in one place makes it very simple to work.
I've always thought that this is, from your perspective, is it a pain in the butt to have to write 3 checks or 2 checks or whatever it is? If you got it all at the same renewal time, does it really bother you? You're writing a check for the captive and then you're writing a check for the property and writing a check for your broker. Does that bother you guys at all or no?
I mean, we look at a company, you process hundreds and hundreds of checks every week, between payrolls and vendors. It's just another vendor check. And for us, it's not a problem at all, dealing with multiple checks.
Same, I don't mind, I sign all my checks still old school. They come to my desk with that piece. Is it a pain for you to have multiple checks coming back in to go through it? It's part of doing business. For me, no, and we're really good about making sure we've broken that out. I'll get the nerdy accountant out now. So we've got this all costed and cost coded through there. So those separate checks are now going to separate places on my general ledger, and then we're amortizing that in. So for us, it's a matter of almost more convenient for me.
I got a quick question.
1 second, before you say that. My only comment is, I don't mind writing the check, but when I have to sign it, my hand shakes.
So do you feel like when you get your distribution that you're sharing in a sense that success with the broker that put you in this program? Does it feel like a team effort?
My short answer is I never thought of that.
That's a no.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever worked the broker into the equation. But yeah, they're a factor to it. And one great thing is at the board meetings, and we've attended a lot of board meetings, when it comes to that distribution meeting, there is never a hand raised when there's an objection to be heard. It's unanimously approved for distributions. But no, we look at it, it's a whole team effort. It starts with upper management. Who said it earlier today? Philip, you mentioned business development. Management team commitment to safety and long-term thinking. So it starts with ownership and upper management. The risk control meetings, that's your safety people, your foremans, your superintendents, anyone who sends to there. And it's the foremans And the craftspeople that work in the fields every single day, whether they're in the warehouse, in your office, they're all part of success. And you surround yourself with winning teams, starting with Captive Resources, the brokers, Kensington, Zurich, the service providers, up and down the entire chain. We're all responsible for success. And the other brokers are in there.
I was gonna ask Gail, were you saying we should cut commission checks off of our?
Yeah.
We didn't go that far, but let's put a pin in it. I would tell you, we didn't talk much about distributions, but now we're at that point where we're closing a lot of those tail funds out at our company, and the dividends that were coming back are north of 50% of our premium. So do I take my broker to whatever steakhouse he wants to once a year? Fuck yes.
There's no USI reps from Buffalo Irish.
Is there a question over here?
I just have one question for Don and David. Mitch, love hearing you talk. Your stories are awesome. But Don and David, what were the things that motivated you to move to a captive? We heard Mitch's response, but I wanted to know what the other two things you guys, what motivated you.
Yeah, I tell you, we kind of buried the lead. What I think Captive Resources did was bury the lead. That member statement that comes out, I'll tell you, that document lives on my desktop. When I look at it and I see my equity that's growing inside of it, and I know that I get reallocated a lot. But that's okay, because it's a group effort. So when we see our funds go across, I can gauge how well the company's doing, the captive's doing, just based on what's coming out. So my motivation to it is very much financial. I would tell you that that's my lens as CFO, but as the group, we look at safety and we look at what's happening inside of ours and that culture that's being promoted in order to make sure that we don't have those losses come through, which are financial in nature but personal in reality. Those are the things that really kind of drove me into it. Being a smaller company, you don't really get that kind of information back when you're out in the market. You say, okay, well, David, you're getting a 25% increase this year. Why? Well, you had a loss. Well, what was it? What did it come through? We weren't really getting that positive flow of information here. Whereas something happens, I call Gallagher Bassett, and we get a claims process going, which thankfully doesn't happen very much. And I'm lockstep in it the whole way, and I can help understand what's going on. So, for me, that's why I have it. It's the financial and the personal nature of what's happening.
And for the first 2-3 years, and I agree with you, Mitch. I mean, the first 2-3 years, you're in the headlights going to these board meetings and workshops. But our motivation was financial. I mean, when we took that leap to change over to a captive program, it was like, man, the numbers look good. And I stuck with that theory for 2, 3, 4 years, and Vince and I would go back and forth, and he said it was safety. And after starting to see dividends come back and the safety culture, I thought we had a safe company when we joined. But there's so much more room for improvement that you realize it's not the finance part that's the motivation right now. It's the safety culture. That's the motivation for every company that joins a captive, is safety culture from the top to the very bottom of everyone in that company. And if you achieve that, the finance just chases you home. Because without the safety, you don't have the finance. So it is a safety-driven program, and the finance is just a reward.
I have a question. So you guys have talked a lot about how it's, you joined, it took a while to figure it out. Is there anything that maybe your broker or CRI could have done, explained differently or better on the front end, maybe like a surprise after the fact of joining the captive that you wish you'd have known on the front end?
No, it's just a matter of it's a lot of information when you go to a board. Has anyone in the group gone to board meetings? So we have a couple members, when they present, let's say, the financial aspect of it, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of slides, a lot of information, and if you're a first or second time attendee, you're still thinking about slide 1 and they're on slide 3. So it's a lot of information. It's getting information, out of a water hose, and you're trying to drink it all in, and you can't do it. So It's attending all the meetings and then just focusing and picking a little bit, and after 3 or 4 or 5 years, you got it down, especially when you start getting that dividend check. That's the motivator when it comes in. When you have a claim and you get an assessment, then you find out that's how the assessment portions really work and how they distribute over 3 years. And if a claim doesn't show up, until the 3rd or 4th year, well, you don't have 3 years to pay it back. You gotta pay it back in 1 year because you already lost your 3 years. So those are the little things about the captive program. If you listen to all the seminars and all the presentations and all the workshops, you're gonna get that information. It's just grasping it all and keeping it in your memory bank.
I went to new member orientation 4 times. I feel like I'm starting to get it.
Who did that orientation?
Someday I'm trainable, Gail, I promise. But I think that is important though, and I know guys that have been in ours 15 years and they go to the meeting, the new member orientation every time, and I said, why? And he goes, they might have something new. I'm like, you're not new. You should not, yeah. But, inside of that, I'd say there's not really any big bogeys. You have to kind of hear something 7 times to understand it the first time. So repetition is gonna be your friend inside of it. Ask a million questions. Nobody has ever told me, David, that was a dumb question. Yet.
I've got one thing, Dan.
Oh.
So we'll just mention about 3 years to pay an assessment, unless the claim develops over several years and you get the assessment 3 years down the lane. I just learned that 3 weeks ago. On my $52,000 assessment that I was gonna have to pay that right away. I said, wait, don't I have 3 years to pay that? Well, no, it was from the year ago, three years ago, so now you gotta pay the whole thing. So 19 years in the captive, I just learned something new.
Congratulations.
Real quick, this is exactly why when I was on stage earlier, I was like, hey, please get your business development executive or captive executive involved. You're hearing directly from a member that there's a lot for them to take in, right? I was a broker before I came to Captive Resources, and I know all of us in this room really like control, but the whole reason we tell you to get us involved is because these are members that are in one specific captive. Could you imagine trying to remember all this stuff for all 47 different captives? It's impossible. That's why we stress so hard, like, please get us involved. That is our job, but don't feel like you have to remember all this stuff or teach your member all this stuff. Like, we will do that for you.
Mitch, I have a question for you. I've only been involved in a handful of captives in over 30-year career, or a handful of fatalities in over 30 years. One of them involved a skylight, and I've got $1 million claim where the injured worker survived, fell through a skylight last year. Where is access to your patented skylight protection?
Big Rock Supply in Bensenville, Illinois.
Thank you. I looked on your website.
I've got a question.
You'll see it's not on mine because we don't advertise it as being mine because no one in Chicago would buy it. So if you go to Big Rock Supply, look under Skylight Rails.
Thank you.
I think they call it, I'm trying to blank it. You'll see it should be on the front page scrolling.
They're part of the captive group. From all construction.
I heard a couple terms today and I wrote them down, and of course they can talk to them, but I wondered if any of the 3 of you, I heard the basket coverage where you have multiple lines triggered at once. Have any of you ever felt that? And clash coverage, have you ever been with another, have you ever had, because you're in the same town, have you ever had a claim with one of your other people that is in the captive? So hearing you guys, I'm like, well, these are some terms that only you guys could probably really speak to if it's happened. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, we fortunately we haven't been in one of those scenarios where we've had something triggered across 3 or 4 of the GCs that are in our hood. I tell you, we've been very fortunate in that one. I think we've done a pretty good job of separating, segregating. If you look at our map, and we throw that up at every board meeting where things are, or who, you know, what the enrollment is by state. I think we're only missing like 3 or 4 states in ours now. But there is concentration, and there is density inside of it, and you could have issues in a hurricane alley. And Gail and I were talking at lunch about hurricanes. There's been more hurricane traffic in Arizona this year than in Florida. I mean, we're pumping out 6 inches of water from a couple of our construction sites this week. So, you know, do those things happen in the real world? Absolutely. You know, is there a risk for it? I think we take our measures here. Nothing has risen to the level where it's really a catastrophic claim that we have to put through.
Yeah, we haven't had that happen. I mean, in the circumstance, we were involved with a claim. We were a subcontractor. It was a development of a large job. And a craftsperson slipped on or tripped on a railing that was scheduled to go into a stair tower in a workspace. And the workspaces, from what I remember, as I was subpoenaed and testified to, they didn't like my answer because I thought the workspace was very clean and organized, and it might have happened. But that's where, if I was a subcontractor on that job, and everyone was brought into the claim. There was a vendor that supplied banners, and they were thrown into the claim. They just threw a net out and named everybody. So in that case there, if there was a drywall contractor that was part of NCI, Raymond E. Kelly part of NCI, an iron worker part of NCI, that would have been the advantage of having those coverages where we're not all going to a $500,000 limit. So that would have helped.
Did you get the story about the busload of attorneys? Is that how they presented it? That's how they always did it, the Roofers Insurance Limited. It'd be, you know, you hit a busload of attorneys and there's 30 attorneys in there and everybody's gonna sue you, but it becomes one claim. So we heard this over and over, and the guy who did this over and over just retired, so we don't have to hear it anymore. But no, we haven't run into the situation, fortunately.
What else you got? Who else has a question?
This is for David. David, you mentioned you're in your company's in an ESOP. Does the calculus for making it the decision to go into a captive change if you're an ESOP company as opposed to non-ESOP?
No, I think it reinforces it. It did for us. ESOP's kind of a growing trend. I don't know if you're seeing it across there in the valley. Everybody's nodding their heads, so I guess it is. The thought process behind that was, you know, we've seen companies out there that are 100-year-old companies go out of business because they don't have a succession plan, and it's really tragic to see that. And we definitely wanted to mitigate that going forward. And our culture that we had, which we bought out a founder a couple of years ago, and we said, okay, well, our exit has to be something that goes along with that. We decided to do that exit now and work the next 10 to 15 years in order to make sure that everything was done and handed off in the right way. The captive's sort of the same way for us. You know, whoever the next, I always joke, whoever the next president is of our company is inheriting a gem, because we've taken all the debt off the books, we've taken all the ownership issues off the books. It's set up in a captive where we've got an equity balance in the 7-figure range. I'm not gonna name it because then you'll find me in that book. We have a low number too. I always look at that number and I think we're pretty low. So, you know, culturally it fit with what that was. I mean, I think if you have somebody that's going in through an ESOP transaction or considering something like that, this is a perfect pairing that would go along with it. You know, that it basically you're tying in employee accountability to both sides of it, not just the ownership, but also into the safety, also into the insurance, which is then feeding that financial component back in, which lands in their pocket. So if you can grab a hold of somebody that's going through one of those transactions, this is a pretty good pairing. I was also in a 48 billion euro public company that was in a captive as well. So I mean, it works on both sides. And it's just kind of you have to really flush it out and see what it looks like for your company and what your losses are and what happens. But the model works. It really does.
And if the company's already in an ESOP, then it's enhancing it?
It's enhancing it. I think so. Yeah, I mean, because now you look, as your CFO, you're supposed to raise revenue, cut costs, and mitigate risk. This does 2 of those 3. And so if you can do that and drive that back in, that's gonna help out with bottom line, at the end of the day. Most of, I mean, our capital is carried off balance sheet, but now my premiums are lower that are going through the P&L. And as well, you know, I've got those dividends coming back in, so I'm cash positive with it. So it does make sense, I mean, from an ESOP standpoint as well.
When you were doing due diligence for the ESOP,
Yeah.
did it show as a higher value because you were in captive?
Well, they wouldn't let me see that valuation, and then I got a hold of it. So it was a metric that was described inside of it. So our third-party evaluator did mention it.
Did you have to make any changes to your preferred share, ownership or anything like that?
We didn't. We were under the model where the preferred and the common share were both held by the company. I know some folks, the owner or somebody outside would have that preferred share to get the dividend. We were luckily and fortunate enough to be in that one, which I think is the right way to do it at the end of the day. But since I wasn't holding preferred shares, it was definitely the right way to do it.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that.
All right.
I like the money deposited in the account.
Other questions? Anybody? Any of our team?
You know, Gail, during the course of the presentations, pretty much every CE, when they described their captive, they had a couple key words, and it was safety focused. So every captive is looking for safety focused companies. Gail, you talked about finance versus safety. I think we talked about that enough, but the other thing you mentioned was the membership networking. Mitch, the networking with your competitors in your own town. I don't know if I would do that, but I network with companies in my own town. I know the guys, they're friends. You go to these board meetings, not just for the great meetings. We don't do as much drinking as the roofers seem to do. Or the general contractors.
It's pretty expensive stuff, all right?
But you get to know these people, and regionally, Buffalo, New York's a small town. We have our same challenges, and you talk to contractors, that might be a mechanical contractor, a drywall contractor, and it's like, how do you deal with it? That's the networking that is it's priceless, it really is. So, when you're vetting a potential new member, safety, start with safety, finance, and then go through the whole vetting process and get them signed up to NCI.
Let's see, so claims, and we've talked a little bit about this, but does anyone feel that they had more kind of a voice at the table, that claims was more collaborative, specifically in the captive world, than they did in the traditional market?
Absolutely, because realistically, we care more. You don't want to claim because you're worried, in the conventional market, you're worried about your premiums going up. What's your renewal going to be? That's really the focus. Once you're past your deductible, it's up to them to do whatever they can do, and you just go on and run your business. Anybody who's worked with me knows that I'm extremely hands-on on every single claim, and constant emails, constant phone calls. Where is it at? What are we doing? What's going on? Let's get it closed. We just had a claim review on Monday. And a big part of the conversation was renewals are coming up. Can we drop what level you got it set at, or can we close something for renewals? In the past, that never would have happened. It was just what it was. We had no control. Now we have full control over the claims, and it makes a huge difference.
Going with the theory of your involvement in the claims. No claim is greatest, but a closed claim is the next best thing. And working with the broker right before renewal, get that, reserve reduced, get it closed, and move on. We're all gonna get claims. We just wanna get them closed, and you're writing the check. It's coming out of your wallet, so your involvement is there, compared to traditional, where they closed it out and you just recognized that I got a huge premium increase. You had no control of it.
So we're on this job site, and the superintendent, we're generals. We don't swing hammers, we don't get dirty, but I have superintendents. And I have project engineers that are 20-something-year-olds that are my kids' age that are working. And the one claim I have in the last 5 years that it was very easy to avoid, that could have been handled better, was this kid who did exactly what the superintendent told him to do. Pick up that door, we're gonna hang it right now, we're not waiting for this frickin' sub to get back here. Put the door up, popped his bicep, went on workers' comp. Quit 3 weeks later. Claim lasted better part of 2 years. Got settled, got done. But it's a learning experience for everybody involved, which is, don't work outside your comfort zone. We're not hands-on people. Come on. Do what's right, do the right thing with safety, which is take care of it. So, yeah, I would tell you, I tell you that first half of the story just to tell you that the claims team, after they stopped laughing at us, helped us get through it and did an amazing job with it.
All right. Any other last questions, or are we're good? All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time.